Well, I'll tell you what I wanted to speak to you about today because I can't wait to get to it. Okay? So I was speaking to,
I'm not talking about my sex life.
well, maybe after the camera's closed.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, maybe in private.
Yeah.
But no, there's something more interesting, I think, than your sex life that I actually confirmed when I was in conversation with Mr. Sanyal the other week. And up until then, I'd thought, yaar, main na thoda teda hu. I hang out on TikTok. When I was in America, I'd hang out on TikTok, watch these flat earth type nonsense. And like I was into this conspiracy sort of rabbit hole. But, when I was speaking to him, he mentioned the Soros-Omidyar sort of conversation again, right? And I was like, the best person to probably ask about any kind of geopolitical conspiracy theory is you. And so I wanted to know, bro, is that real? Is like George Soros or Omidyar, first of all, who is George Soros and Omidyar? And why the hell are they interested in my life?
First, you have to look at where Soros comes from. Omidyar is slightly more complex. Omidyar is Iranian origin, so refugee family, run away from home. Probably feels this need that, to achieve in other places what he could not achieve in Iran, which is see a free Iran as would have been handed over to him by his parents, or I don't know when he left Iran or whatever. Soros is the same thing. Notice both these people are refugees.
Soros is a refugee from?
From Hungary.
From Hungary.
A Hungarian Jew who joined the Nazis, incidentally, pretending to be a Christian, accompanied the SS, not just the Nazis, the SS, accompanied them in arresting and confiscating other Jewish families and properties. And then, I guess to wash his own sins, became a ardent lover of freedom, very good investor, knows how to invest. He only invests in if the risk probability is over 98%. And clearly made good investments and decided to use it for good in educating people in all the former Soviet bloc countries. And at some point, both of these guys turn. And I'll tell you what the turning is. I suspect it has a lot to do with maintaining monopolies. Because in our own lifetime, we have seen, while growing up, I mean, I was already grown up, you must have been growing up, when mobile phones first came into the market, they were huge. They were almost double the size of my battery
I remember.
pack. And you could only do some things in them. You could maximum store 100 numbers. 100 numbers when it first came out was, oh my God, 100 numbers. Okay. And then it became smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then we finally transitioned into smartphones. And in our lives, we saw, nobody had heard of a company called Nokia. It became the most globally recognizable brand ever in human history up to that point. And then it went bankrupt and went under.
Yes.
We've seen this. All of us have seen this in our own lifetimes.
Yes.
Omidyar has seen this with eBay. eBay was a legitimate competitor to Amazon.
Right.
Where is eBay today?
I think it's doing in consumer-to-consumer sales. Like,
But
it's not
nowhere.
legitimate. It's very scammy.
It's very scammy.
Yeah.
So it's nowhere.
Yes. No, nowhere near Amazon. No.
Nowhere. So, and yet eBay was a legit competitor to Amazon at one point of time.
Even I think precedes Amazon a little bit.
Possibly.
Yes.
Now, in an environment like that, you want to thwart innovation because innovation will destroy you. It's the same reason, for example, Apple keeps filing all kinds of patent lawsuits against other people so that they are always at the top of innovation and nobody can catch up to them and things like that.
Right.
They file patents for all the most absurd of things. Your phone looks like my phone. How can your phone look like my phone?
Right.
All kinds of crap like this they put in. There is a wonderful paper by the Reserve Bank of Pennsylvania, which shows you that the Wright brothers, so, aviation was invented simultaneously at two places. People don't realize this. It was Oliver and Wilbur Wright in America, but it was also a Brazilian-French aviator called Roland Garros, after whom the tennis stadium is named, the French Open, in France. And, no, not Roland Garros, Santos Dumont.
Okay.
Roland Garros is the fighter pilot. Santos Dumont is the airport in Sao Paulo or
Check kar le.
Sao Paulo or Rio is named after this guy.
Okay.
And क्या होता है कि Santos Dumont is the guy who invents aviation. So what ends up happening is कि in France they never patented it. In America, because it had a very strong capitalist system, the Wright brothers patented everything to do with aviation. So imagine in 1890 something, when the first flight there happens, right up to the First World War, the Americans enter the First World War without a single functioning fighter aircraft. Why? Because the Wright brothers have destroyed all kinds of innovation because they've patented everything. And they aggressively go after people. The French don't. Which is why the French have an extremely developed aviation industry at that point of time. Europe is eons ahead of America in terms of fighter development. This is the same thing we're looking at. So these guys, they want to prevent further growth. And how do you do that? Further innovation. You do that through societal control. In medieval Europe, it was done through blasphemy. Today, it's done through wokeism. Basically, you need a system where people don't know what they will be cancelled or destroyed for. There must always be fear. And in an environment of fear, innovation can't happen. So it's actually a very carefully thought out capitalist enterprise to preserve existent monopolies and prevent new innovators from coming up.
In the cultural space? Because, okay, let me just...
Anywhere. Because you can be a scientist and you can say, you know, we could be two scientists working. Not that anybody is going to believe that the two of us are scientists, but anyway.
Cheers.
We could be two scientists working on how to convert, I don't know, grapes into nuclear energy. And I will just say, I don't know, hey, Prakhar, you dirty brown fag. Or I won't even say that. I'll say, hey, thoda homo lagta hai, thoda kala lagta hai. And this will be interpreted as I've hurt your feelings and my career will be destroyed for it.
Right.
Okay. I will not dream. Imagine the mental stress I'm going through coming to office every day, not knowing who I'm going to piss off.
Right.
And get written up for what.
Right.
I will never even try to hurt somebody's scientific feelings. Because remember, innovation is what? It is the concept of religious blasphemy applied to science.
You mean wokeism is what?
No.
Innovation is the concept of religious blasphemy applied to science.
Yeah.
I see, because you were completely shifting paradigms and that causes a shift in the way you look at science, right? Fair.
So, it prevents you from doing that. Societal fear prevents you from scientific innovation.
Fair.
Achieved. All your investments and monopolies are safe.
So wait, let me get this straight, because I think you said quite a bit. So from what I understand is that there is an attempt to create a monopoly, and part of
Not an attempt to create a monopoly, an attempt to preserve existing market structures through inciting societal fear.
And so there is a social attitude that has been engineered into us along the lines of, say, wokeism, so that you can probably from the shadows work around and prevent people from innovating, trying new things, making mistakes as they go along, and so on. So it's a phantom fear that has been created by these two individuals, you're saying?
Lots of people. It's not. These two are the most visible ones because they also do political interference.
Okay.
Now, why do they do political interference? Is so that all markets will be pliable to them. They can invest and destroy whenever they need to. Because what you do when you manufacture social strife is you force governments to make mistakes.
Right. You put them under pressure.
Which case, if you are short selling and shit like that,
brilliant.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, you'll make so much money.
These two are essentially criminals. They're crooks and criminals masquerading as respectable people. I would literally say it is more respectable to go to a whorehouse than it is to work for George Soros or Pierre Omidyar.
Okay, let me try and understand this, because
not that I'm judging anybody going to a whorehouse.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's perfectly legit. I mean,
as long as it's legal.
Service.
Yeah.
No, I mean, why should we judge any of that? But right. I'm just saying, in terms of societal things, if you're going to look down on them, you should be looking down on these two a lot more.
Ladies, अगर आपको पसंद आ रहे हैं ये questions और ये podcast और आपको लग रहा है wow, तो आप अपने आप से पूछो, आपने subscribe button क्यों नहीं दबाया? अभी तक सब्सक्राइब बटन क्यों नहीं दबाया है? सब्सक्राइब दबाओ. We're going to be putting out more great conversations with the finest Indian minds that you can find on Prakhar Ke Pravachan.
So, Soros and Omidyar, Soros being a Hungarian Jew, Omidyar coming from Iran, both are refugees, both end up very well placed in the business world.
Let's not call him a Hungarian Jew.
Okay.
Because the bastard was a Nazi.
Fair. Okay.
He threw his own people to the gas chambers.
Which is, I mean, knowing
So
enough
literally,
Jewish people.
he literally sell his mother to the Nazis in order to make buck.
Wow. So these two individuals make it huge in the business world. They're investors of sorts. And these two individuals are at the forefront of at least one cultural phantom fear that has been induced to us through this idea of wokeism.
Yes.
And then these two also wield the power to cause political interference to move markets for them to make shit tons of money.
Yes.
This sounds like a movie script. Even to my conspiratorial mind, this sounds like, it's like the Illuminati sort of.
But it why does it have to be a movie script? It's very direct. I mean,
Bro, how much money do these guys
people-
need? Aren't they already billionaires?
Listen, is there any... Are you happy with the number of subscribers you have?
No.
No, you want more, no? Why?
Always subscribe, huh? Right, yeah, because more is
I
better.
have Twitter followers. Don't I want more?
Yeah, right.
I don't actually, because I like to... I mean, I'm thrilled
But
when I
you're
get
different.
more.
Huh.
But basically, Twitter is where I go to fart. Like, you don't fart at the dinner table. You excuse yourself and go out and fart. That's what I do on Twitter.
Right.
But who says this much is enough? I've never met a millionaire who doesn't want to become a billionaire who doesn't want to become a multi-billionaire, or a multi-billionaire who doesn't want to become a trillionaire.
Right.
It's never happened.
So interesting. I can see that. Somebody pointed out to me that at that level of money, you are so inundated and so insulated by the effect of money, you want more tangible power. And power becomes a source of...
And power is a huge high. The fact that you can change governments, the fact that you can fault a government into making policy mistakes, the fact that you can thwart genuine government policy so that you can make a profit. It becomes a game, you see. You become amoral and insulated to the life consequences to millions of other people. And that is what these two people are.
And how or why are they interested in India at all?
But apparently the son is quite... he's not so taken in with all this activism as the father. But he's also a piece of shit like the father.
Whose son is this? Omidyar's or Soros's?
Soros's, Alexander.
But why are they interested in India? Like, what's so fancy about India? Or is this like a...
It's nothing personal. It's just they'll go wherever there's a buck to be made.
Okay, fair. So it's all about making a buck.
And controlling governments.
And controlling governments, having shadow control over... Because I'll tell you this, okay? Having lived in America long enough, I can for sure give it in writing. Like, I don't understand how wokeism became so mainstream that deviation from it is blasphemy. It makes no fucking sense for 3 presidents of 3 prestigious universities to sit in a courtroom or in a congressional hearing and say, well, the genocide for Jews is contextual. And it almost seems like there is some kind of a forced agenda. And when I tend to this notion of a forced agenda and I let it go a little further, sometimes I even feel like this deranged hyperactivism around climate, for that matter, this deranged hyperactivism around wokeism, they're all similar forms of kind of shadow control of populations. And then Vivek Ramaswamy comes along and he screams from his debating sort of podium about the 3-letter agencies and how they shadow control governments and so on. And it all begins to come together. You see an obvious symptom. You see the fear that COVID induced in people. India was a separate story. America was a very separate story. You see the fact that there is this woke mind virus that spreads like anything and people just eat it up because they want to feel good about themselves. And then eventually you see Vivek Ramaswamy calling shit like it is, and you're like, man, I'm genuinely beginning to wonder if there is some shadow control that some group of people, it may not be the Illuminati kind of...
It's never shadow control. I don't believe in these deep state theories. You know, what happens is, if you incentivize enough people in a similar goal or a similar process, they will go along with it. Okay? Both the CIA and the FBI they're not some, there's that cartoon Pinky and the Brain.
I remember that. Loved it.
So this isn't the brain. What are we doing today? Piggy, as usual, we're trying to take over the world.
Yes. Two rats trying to do that.
Yeah. And, well, one genetically morphed rat.
Yes.
This isn't the brain. Okay? This is a lot of very mediocre babus sitting in the CIA who love their political careers and expect political payback for calling in certain favors. Okay, same with the FBI. Okay, and what ends up happening is the businesses that are going to give you all the money and the post-retirement jobs require you to perpetuate a political system that induces fear and civil strife so that their current market lead positions are not compromised.
Okay.
And all of this is dovetailed in perfectly with a slow left-wing capture of academia.
Right.
Since the 1990s, since the end of the Cold War and all the defenses against communism came down, because the left loves power through the creation of victimhood.
Yeah.
So it was a capitalist system that needed a narrative to thwart innovation. It was a left-wing system that needed an academia to create new victimhoods.
Right.
These two find a perfect meeting. So between an FBI director wanting a Harvard seat for his son and wanting Google to fund his son's Harvard education, why would an FBI director not go along? It's not that he's actually... It's some deep state plan.
Right. It's individual motivations.
Yeah.
It's individual motivations of people.
And it's brilliant because the communists are fantastic at creating victims.
Yeah.
They will make victims where none exist.
Right.
And wokeism is fantastic because you're telling a fully grown adult that he or she does not have to accept responsibility for their situation, their conditions, and their choices. It's all because of society.
Not only that, bro, it's stealing power from under your nose by saying you are powerful.
Yeah.
So it's such a confusing environment when I say, listen, you are a Brahmin. I am a lower caste. Therefore, you have done to me in history things that are unspeakable. Now I will scream at you. And this may not be the direct case in India. I think the Indian sort of left-wing narrative is slightly different. But if you take it to America, if you take it to campus politics, and I saw a lot of it very early on in my career at Columbia. Maybe this was semester 1, and I don't know if I've told you. Semester 1, I'm walking around campus, and the Palestinian Liberation Week and the Jewish Pride Week, something, right? The Israelis and the Palestinians would protest together. So dead in the middle of the campus, on one side, the Palestinians would protest and put up their shows. The Jewish would do on one side. And growing up, watching football, being a midwit, I'd never truly come across this issue except for Ronaldo sometimes talking about Palestine and, things. So I was like, I'm interested. I went to the Jewish...
Ronaldo speaks about Palestine?
He was, if I remember correctly, he was heavily Gaza, Palestine. That was the first time I came across those words. Right? Anyway, so I go to the Jewish guys and I'm talking to them. I'm trying to understand, so what is this about? Why do you do this? What is the problem? I don't even know your conflict. I've heard it's as bad as Kashmir, but I've never even heard. And the Jews were very friendly to me. They start talking to me. They're nice to me. We laugh a little bit. And then I walk over to the Palestinian side and I'm like, do you want to tell me what this is? And they flip me off. They literally show me the middle finger.
Why?
They thought I was either Jewish or aligned with the Jewish cause and they didn't want to talk to me. And so from the minute I stepped into Columbia's campus, from day one, I was hyper aware that this is a place where I'm walking on eggshells. And one day I will say he instead of they, and they will find a way to rip me apart. Right? So it was very funny after a certain while, but it definitely looked like ideological hijack of the minds. It did not look like a well thought out plan or structure. There was a lot of meltdowns involved in this,
So it's basically coming together of a lot of agendas in a very toxic cocktail.
Right.
That's it.
But I will say this, right? This made me sort of spend a great degree of time being around Israelis, being in Israel, because unfortunately the Palestinians had decided my friend group, right? Can you get the mic a little closer? Baad mein issue hoga. And so I've been to Israel. I've spent enough time in Israel. I've actually hung out in places I should not have in Israel, thanks to some of my friends there, and my college did very well with that. what I saw on 7th October was completely insane. And I know you've spoken about it in multiple podcasts, but I have a very specific question. How in the world do you think that Israeli intelligences did not know about this at all? Like, I just do not buy that.
See, they were warned, but nobody warned them about the scale of things. They thought it's something that we look after locally. They didn't realize, A, how big it was. They didn't realize how much intel the people had on them. And hence, no idea of the scale. There was one Israeli researcher who had gamed it before.
What do you mean gamed it?
She had predicted something like this. But all the other intel analysis came back saying no. Because remember, intel is a raw product.
Right.
It gets processed and analyzed and and you can get it horribly wrong. So for example, the Israeli and the French intelligence chiefs, like me, thought Russia was not going to invade Ukraine. The German, American and British intelligence chiefs said, well, they are going to invade Ukraine. This is it's a judgment call. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not the last time we'll see it happen, even with Israel. It will happen again, something like that. Maybe the timelines will be different, but something nasty will happen again.
You mean in Israel?
Yeah, if the conflict continues. 40, 50 years for them to engineer another, called a strategic surprise.
So like they'll take 40 years to come back again if they're not truly vanquished in any way. Right.
And there's nothing you can do about it, Prakhar, because history will teach you that no matter how well prepared you are, surprises like this will always happen. It's very easy with the benefit of hindsight to, say ki, oh, we should have seen this.
Right.
It's impossible. It's as simple as, Top Chef, kitne log dekhte hain? Do you watch Top Chef?
I have a little idea.
No,
MasterChef. MasterChef, yeah, right.
So the, what's it called? The Secret Box Challenge?
Well, bro, you watch too much MasterChef. I don't know what Secret Box Challenge is.
They're all put into a room.
Right.
And they have to open the box. And all of them are given the same ingredients, but it's only about 10 ingredients. And everyone has to make a dish with those 10 ingredients.
Okay.
And what ends up happening is, even though everyone has the same ingredients, everybody ends up making a different dish. Raw intel is like the ingredients. The analysis is, and imagine sitting in another room, not really knowing what each of the 10 contestants is going to make, except that you're sitting in another room. And every now and then you can see this lady pouring oil in. So you can fairly assume with the amount of oil that she's going to fry.
Right.
Or another guy putting curry powder in, so this other guy is going to make some kind of a curry.
Right.
You can't really tell what each of these guys is going to make with that. And that is where this is why intel analysis is extremely difficult. With all the same inputs, you can have 10 different dishes and the person sitting in the other room has to guess which of those 10 dishes is going to win the contest. It's very difficult.
Right, I follow. It's like finding a needle in a haystack kind of a situation because you're sifting through so much material, trying to make sense of it and tie it in a narrative. Yeah.
So it's unrealistic to expect that, the terrorist only has to succeed once.
Right.
You have to succeed every single time to prevent it.
Right.
So this is what happened. And it's like every other intelligence failure, very predictable with the benefit of hindsight.
Right.
But not predictable with foresight.
So I was talking to my friend who actually, he's kind of crazy. He was, I think, in New York when this broke out. Guy flew out to Europe. I don't know where he got a ship from, and he sailed into Israel to fight because he was like, man, look, this is my people. I'm not going to tolerate this. So he got into Israel, and I hadn't spoken to him in a very long time. I was worried for him. So I ended up finding a way to contact him. And we got on a very secure link to do a video call. And I was like, bro, what is up? What's happening? He was like, this is going to go on for a while. This could be anywhere between 3 months to 10 years. We don't know. But he gave me something that was very interesting. He said this is part of a three-pronged warfare that is beginning. The first prong is the Ukraine-Russia leg. The second prong is this. And he said the third prong is probably in the South China Sea with Taiwan.
Possibly, yeah.
You've heard of this?
Yeah. And I'm not going to dismiss it.
Okay.
But like I said with Soros, I don't think it's deep state or anything.
Right.
It's just all the stars aligning.
Fair. It's like all of these things converging in a very random sort of fashion.
Russia invades Ukraine. Russia needs a diversion to take away Western money and attention from Ukraine.
Right.
And mind you, this kind of a sophistication of attack and covering up your tracks the way Hamas did, Iran can't do it.
You don't think Iran can do that? Acha, so you think there is Russian
Qatar ki to auqat hi nahi hai.
हाँ, खैर. हाँ.
I think a lot of Wagner footprints in this I see.
Whoa.
Personally,
But you
I
don't
have no
know.
proof.
Right.
But it won't be
Surprising.
outside the realm of possibility either. This sophistication, forget about it. The Iranians are not capable of it. And the Chinese will just pick an opportunity. You see, they see the West bogged down in two major confrontations here and there, and then they decide to reunify Taiwan. So what do? So I don't think it was planned, but I do think there is no better time. If I was sitting in Beijing and wanted to reunify Taiwan, there's no better time for me to do it than now.
Right. Because, even Ukraine was also this agenda point that I saw emerge in America when it happened. Not that I am pro-Russia or pro-Ukraine or any of that. I don't think I know enough. Although it was very clear from the beginning that Ukraine won't last, right? Like Russia will drain it out or find a way. But brother, the buildings in New York are colored yellow, blue, and whatever the third color, second color is. Everything in America for about 5 months was Ukraine. The Americans felt like it was personal injury to them that Russia was invading Ukraine. And with the privilege of being Indian, where you can have like a third person point of view, I was like, I think y'all are a little extreme about this.
As much as Americans and Europeans like to believe they're independent-minded,
Right.
I've never seen more hive-minded people who believe what the government tells them to believe.
Right.
They're literally a bunch of zombies. In India, for example, nobody takes the government seriously.
Yeah, that is so funny.
Like if the government says the sun is the center of the universe and the earth goes around it, they may vote for the government,
But they'll still laugh at it.
but they'll still laugh at it.
Right.
But in the West, I'm just amused at how much they trust their governments.
Or at least are willing to buy the talking points of the government for debate.
Yeah.
Why did you take Trump so seriously? Although I love the guy, but he was never meant to be taken this seriously. You discussed him for 3-4 years and kept asking yourself, why is he president? Because you give him so much media space.
But remember, he was the first guy who came very close to dismantling all this,
These terror networks.
not just terror networks, but also the academic fraud that's been perpetuated on America that prevents a resolution of the Middle East crises. Someone who wasn't going to go along with this big business agenda at freezing innovation at one point.
Right.
So it was very... they had to go after him.
They had to.
In going after him, they really exposed their colors.
Well, yeah, Biden's an idiot.
Because now, we know that January 6th was largely fabricated. It was entrapment to a certain degree. We know that the protesters were not violent,
Right.
for sure.
Yes. We know the election was
Unruly,
stolen.
yes, but not violent.
Right.
Definitely not terrorism. Definitely not worth 11-year sentence and shit like that. Definitely not the extent to which the FBI is going to cover up who its informants and things were within that system and what they knew. That the entire Russiagate story was a hoax. That the FBI and CIA fed that hoax, deliberately fed that hoax. See, they've exposed themselves. you now know. So it is not deep state. Let's be clear about this. What it is you now know who is invested in what and why.
Whose motivations align with what?
Yeah.
And whose motivations align with what? Like the Democrats' motivations align with what?
The Democrats' motivations align with greater social strife. So that, because remember, the Hispanic and black population used to be Republican voters, even though a pro-poor agenda should have gotten Democrats their votes.
Right.
But they used to vote on religion, Catholicism and militant Protestantism. They used to vote Republican.
Right.
Whereas now, because of social strife, they'll all vote Democrat.
Right.
It's fantastic, you see.
Yeah.
The tech industry needs to they need wokeism as a tool of social control to prevent innovation. Right? The CIA and the FBI need the ability to manipulate things globally, which they were not being allowed to do for a while. Right? So you understand what their motivations are, how they're playing it out.
Fair. Do you think... So the hypothesis my friend had is that there is an axis between Russia, China, Iran on one front and the West on the other front. And he said that we think that the next sort of conflict might end up in the South China Sea for Taiwan, where, things might get heated. And I felt like Kashmir's not far off. And Kashmir's been awfully silent as an issue since 370 was abrogated, right? Pakistan lost its cause of existence. Like, the Pakistanis fell off.
Understand what Modi did in Kashmir is like what Trump pulled off in the Middle East.
Right.
Trump made more peace deals between Israel and all the Arab states than all the previous presidents had. The previous 70 years worth of presidents.
Right.
Right. And this is why a lot of people hate Modi as well. Because everybody said, oh, no, Kashmir is a very intellectual problem. It's shades of grey. Modi's like, Bhencho, there is no intellectual shit out here. Right. It's a clear, simple problem. I've solved it for you. The militancy is over. The insurgency is over. There will be terror attacks. There's a huge difference between individual terror attacks and a state of insurgency. There is no more state of insurgency in Kashmir anymore.
Right.
And they hate him for it. Because इनका धंधा
बंद हो गया ना? Yeah. धंधा पाकिस्तान का cause of existence खत्म हो गया, bro. Like when you talk to Pakistanis and you ask them a question like, so bro, what's being Pakistani like? They have no answer because they've had to redo their concept of being Pakistani since Kashmir became a non-issue.
And it's been a lot of things with Pakistan. It's been the fact that Imran Khan has split military families in a way that they haven't been split before. Their economy is now fully gone. There's
Completely.
no way of recovering. It's a temporary recovery. They'll have to keep taking loans to pay off just the interest on those loans. They're not even going to be able to make interest payments. Nobody knows what will happen when they declare bankruptcy, because if you thought Sri Lanka was nasty, then Pakistan armed with guns and shit's going to be a heck of a lot nastier. The same Taliban that you bred and brought up has now turned on you, and they want all the Pashtun regions of Pakistan, including the Pashtun regions of Balochistan, of North Balochistan.
So Afghanistan's expanding.
Basically, they're trying to. Or at least they're carrying out a lot of terror attacks in Pakistan so that Pakistan won't interfere. Pakistan will be bogged down in Pakistan. They won't be able to interfere in Afghanistan.
Fair.
Bhai, what do you have going for you right now? Nothing.
But that's what scares me. कि अब इनको for the next election, for popular support, they will try and reignite the Kashmir issue. Well, they will try and do individual insurgencies.
No, they can't. They can have individual terror attacks, but they can't reignite an insurgency.
Because the UN and the global powers, no?
It's because the ground support simply doesn't exist. See, when there was a state of insurgency, there is a general popular fear, which means that when you're asked to come out in stone pelt, you come in stone pelt. When you're asked to give shelter to a terrorist, you provide that shelter. When the state of insurgency ends, that societal fear evaporates. You can say, मैंने नहीं रखना है, फिर वो CRPF अगर उसको पता चल गया,
मारेगा,
मेरे को पीटेगा. Before at least I could claim, भैया उन्होंने आके ये किया. Now they'll say, भाई तेरे पास फोन था ना, आके कॉल करना था हमको, क्यों नहीं किया?
सही.
Similarly, Patharbaaz. Why has there been any stone pelting in the last 3-4 years?
fairly, I would think the military, the CRPF, the police is tighter.
The money has stopped.
The money from Pakistan has stopped.
The money from Pakistan and the money from corruption internally has stopped. No. Mehbooba and Omar aren't getting any money. There's no money to pay these buggers to come out and stone pelt.
Right.
So it's been dealt with very well. So even if they try to do something on Kashmir, it's not going to succeed. And they know that. And then what happens if you get crushed in a military conflict? Then what do you do?
Bro, but do they? Because they have like popular support from China, right?
China is fed up with them. This is the other problem.
China's fed up with them.
They overpromised to China. And they still have not been able to complete the China-Pakistan economic corridor.
But I still feel like a failed nuclear-armed state whose entire purpose of existence is this piece of land that has been snatched from them under their noses, where powers behind that state are interested in social and political...
Now, here is the big difference. We assume this is like North Korea, which has no external interests. Every single Pakistani elite
has houses
either
in
a
UK.
Dubai citizenship or UK double citizenship or American double citizenship.
Right.
If those nukes get into the wrong hands, what do you think is going to happen to all those double citizenships? You're going to be sent right back to Pakistan to deal with the situation you've created.
So the individual incentive.
So they use this card to say we are a nuclear power. If we collapse, you better give us money now. And the Americans are no longer buying that shit.
Right.
The Chinese are no longer buying that shit because they're like, your utility to us was either as an economic market, you didn't allow CPEC to go through, or it was opposing India, keeping India off balance. You failed miserably in Kashmir. How the fuck are we going to trust you to keep India off balance now?
So it's losing its allies, huh?
This is what happens when you're too smart by half.
When you're
too smart by half.
Is that a saying? Too smart by half? That is so interesting, bro. Because, I mean, you can see the mood in Pakistan change between people. And, I mean, this is also before Imran Khan, where they would be like, bro, छोड़ो ना कश्मीर यार, अपना तो देख लेते हैं, हमारी फटी पड़ी है, खाने को पैसा नहीं है. The inflation has gone from 80 rupees to 250 rupees in the span of a couple of months. What are we supposed to fight for Kashmir for? And so it seems like even people's support behind that motion has disappeared. And this was this shadow thought I had in the back of my head that might be a problem in the future, is that a failed state will get desperate. And desperation is not good with nuclear armed states.
Correct. The problem is, this is not an insular nuclear armed state like, say, North Korea. It is at least the elites are more international than our elites, because our elites spend most of their time in India.
Right.
They have their houses in India.
Right.
Their elites do not spend most of their time in Pakistan.
Right.
Because it's a hellhole to live in. They spend most of their time in Dubai, London, or
America.
New York, or wherever.
Yeah.
And they only come back as if Pakistan is a holiday home. Which is why they've played footloose and fancy free with the interest of Pakistan, you see?
I see. Because there's no skin in the game.
Because there's no skin in the game.
Right.
It's rapine plunder of a landlord, of an absentee landlord, essentially. Who just wants his mahine ka rent. He doesn't care how badly the farmer is doing, or that the tax or the rent is exorbitant for what he's providing.
The reason I was asking about Pakistan is also because, like, touchwood, things in India are so great right now, man. I was talking about this with Mr. Sanyal as well. Like, every country, every nationality I speak to has some buckloads of problem they do not know how to handle. Like Argentina up until recently, and now there is a crazy man at the helm we are very interested to see. But Turkey was a failing state. All of South America failing. All of Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, even China has its economic worries. Like America has a social conflict that it does not know how to resolve. The polarizations more than ever. UK is dead. Nobody cares about Germany. Ireland has terrorists inside their own boundaries. India seems great. Like right now it seems like the place to be, right? And let's say the anxious part of me is foreseeing what we cannot foresee more obviously. So I'm like trying to see, okay, where is the next thing going to strike? What is the next thing going to be? And when I heard about this 3-pronged warfare sort of scheme that supposedly these guys had, I was like, man, I see you say it's Taiwan. I don't think Kashmir is too far from Taiwan. And I have reasons to believe, or at least logics to sort of conclude that that might be the case. But I hear what you're saying about Kashmir. It doesn't seem like, from what you're saying, that the threat that is now going to emerge is going to come from Pakistan. Sri Lanka is whatever. There is some news that I always see from Subramanian Swamy about how Aksai chain and like China is moving along further, and we don't talk about it. But more proximately, what in the fuck is this parliament security breach? Because let me give you a layman's view. You already know enough. You know the insides. Brother, it does not seem like a legitimate security breach at all. Because if there is a security breach, what is a gas canister doing in your hand? Like, you would bring a gun or you would bring an actual bomb, right? You would actually try to hurt people. There is no attempt to hurt. This seems very symbolic. This seems like a distraction. This seems like some way for somebody to cause some kind of a public reaction so something else can happen.
Who's the first person who tweeted out the image of the entry pass of this guy? First of all, how is this entry pass of the guy found lying around? And you know which MP tweeted it out first?
Who?
Kunwar Danish Ali.
Who's that?
The guy who got expelled from the BSP over his support to Mahua Moitra.
This goes back to Mahua Moitra?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I was joking. For real, bro.
Well, this is the guy who tweeted the image out first.
Okay.
Now, tell me, how do 6 people all from different parts of India, not one of them is from the same state, meet online, who are all known left-wing protesters, suddenly get together and hatch a plot? How are they able to bring in, because outsiders coming in are double scanned. As in scanned more carefully than members of parliament.
Fair, right.
The belief right now is it was an inside job and somebody placed the canisters for them to come in and take.
भाई YouTube ने ना हमें सस्ता सेल्समैन बना रखा है. तो सुनो मेरी सेल्स पिच. अगर आपको भी पसंद है ग्रेट कॉन्वर्सेशंस जस्ट लाइक दिस, और आपको भी मजा आता है अच्छे क्वेश्चंस जिससे निकलते हैं अच्छे आंसर से, तो यहीं पे आसपास एक सब्सक्राइब वाला बटन है, उसको बम से दबा दीजिए, बम. और देखिए आपकी नियत और आपकी इंटेलिजेंस कैसे चेंज होती है. See you on the other side.
So they didn't bring anything with them while they were coming inside. It was planted somewhere within the premise. And well, within the premise, would it be a member of parliament or the service like people in the
We don't know, and we suspect that's why the opposition has gone quiet all of a sudden.
Bro, but that's too obvious. I think if the opposition planned it, they would be on the forefront talking about it. Like, my point is...
Not if you're going to get caught with the gas canisters, no?
But bro, how in the world did they expect to get out of there without being caught anyway?
They didn't. They thought it was going to be a Greta Thunberg or this Likpriya Kangujam kind of stunt.
And that the people are going to clap at them? I don't think so, bro.
Yeah.
I think nobody's really...
Yeah, why don't you believe that some people are stupid?
No, but that stupid... Brother, these guys are being charged by under UAPA. They may never see daylight again. They may end up in jail forever. At the very least. For 5 protesters of left-wing nature to say, look, I will sacrifice my life for no harm done except yellow gas.
Have you ever met a left-winger?
Of course, I fucking lived in their gad.
Do you know how brainwashed they can be?
Sure.
Do you know how committed to their ideology and suffering for their ideology they can be?
I've seen ideologues of all varieties being super committed. But to sacrifice their life over no damage dealt?
They didn't know that. What if somebody had told them it isn't just smoke?
And imagine that guy being like, "Abbe, ye to sirf dhua hai," at that last moment. Kite mera cut gaya.
What if? Simple question. Tell me, when Hamas pulled whatever it pulled off, what did they think Israel was going to do?
Yeah, well, you are right. Because obviously Israel's going to rain hell on them.
So, if Hamas can be that stupid, why can't these 5 left-wingers be that stupid?
Because Hamas, you can make a reasonable case that Hamas represents the most violent, pushed against the back, pushed against the wall part of the Gazan mentality.
Doesn't have to be violent. A believer doesn't have to be violent. You can believe through small symbolic actions also.
Right.
You are able to inflict a great social change.
But bro, you cannot say that there seems to be a large organizational coordination behind it and also say that there could also be individual stupidity, because if there's a large organizational coordination,
Hamas is a large organization,
right?
and yet they did something individually stupid.
Fair. I still would say that Hamas probably thought that the world would come to its defense, and it did. Like, some of their gambles did pay off, right? India does not, because Indians love Israelis and India loves Israel, but to a great degree, the West did come in support of it. People have forgotten the 7th October massacre and they think Israel's massacring Gazans.
Are they doing anything to Israel other than verbal support every now and then?
Right.
Is anyone sanctioning Israel?
No. Right. So, these 5 idiots who were sponsored or at least allowed in by the signing of a BJP MP from Mysore, that's also part of it, right?
2 of them.
How does that come about then? Like, is it because the plot seems very rich in its intelligence flavor, right? कि तुमने BJP से sign करवाया भाई, तुम opposition से आ रहे हो.
And if you look at the height of the visitors gallery, let's do a Google search. I want to show you this. Visitors gallery, New Parliament.
Let me see. Actually, हम ये ना image डालेंगे. It's fairly high where I would think, like, मतलब जैसे movies वो cinema hall के balcony होते हैं, उतना high तो है ही. Right, हाँ.
How is this fellow able to just jump in without hurting himself?
भाई मतलब ऐसी भी कोई चोट नहीं लगेगी. हाँ, ये कह सकता हूँ कि झटका पड़ सकता है नी में.
Boss, your knees will really hurt.
Right. You can say that, yeah. You can't just jump like ऐसा नहीं है कि हाँ पार्क की गेट नहीं है.
Taken some level of training.
हाँ. To jump, you would say? Bro, a guy could have just been like, चल ले, मैं वैसे भी पार्लियामेंट में बम लेके जा रहा हूँ, थोड़ी सी चोट लग जाए, क्या जाता है?
Possibly.
Right.
But my thing is very clear. कि boss, the story doesn't add up by itself.
No.
Okay? Because they were very confused even about all the bullshit that they were chanting apparently.
What did they chant?
Apparently they said, महिला आरक्षण नहीं चलेगा and तानाशाही नहीं चलेगी.
किसकी? Like, is there a context? किस चीज की सेंस में तानाशाही की बात कर रहे हैं?
I don't know. Let me just check my WhatsApp messages because
there will obviously be
people
news
who
there.
are there. I'm just checking my messages. ये हमारे ग्रुप में डाला गया था. क्या था ये? महिलाओं पे अत्याचार बंद करो, तानाशाही नहीं चलेगी.
Bro, this is a decoy. This is a distraction. क्योंकि कौन महिलाओं को कोई कुछ कर रहा है क्या?
So why were they shouting महिला पे अत्याचार बंद करो?
मतलब ऐसा कोई there is no active component in the Indian political sphere right now where women are like directly being addressed or oppressed or any of that. So this seems like a complete BS narrative to distract us from. Or yaar, I would think कि even if the opposition did it.
This is a left-wing person who sent it to me, by the way. So they're definitely not trying to.
No, they're not trying to tell you like that. That's not what I think. I think when I thought about this, I was like, suppose मैं मानता हूँ opposition ये कर रहा है. ऑपोजिशन को इससे क्या मिल रहा है? या मैं अगर ये बोलता हूँ बीजेपी भी ये कर रही है, रूलिंग पार्टी भी ये कर रही है, उनको भी इससे क्या मिलता है? किसी को इससे क्या मिलता है?
We don't know. ये क्या
comedy of errors है?
Let the investigation happen. I think it'll become clearer because right now nothing's adding up.
Yes.
Like about Ukraine, it still does not make sense to me after almost 2 years now what the fuck Putin was thinking.
When he was trying to invade?
Yeah. The intel failure in Israel, I think, is a lot clearer.
Okay.
But Putin's brain is none the clearer. Or for me, Putin's brain is none the clearer. And this we'll get clarity over the next few days.
Bro, but what is the guarantee that the clarity we will get will not also be distorted to sort of continue the illusion? Right? I know I'm getting fairly conspiratorial here, but I have fair reason to believe that whatever will break out in the media eventually.
Because everything will be on video. See, when you want to continue the illusion, like January the 6th, you deny video.
Right.
Here, the video will be released.
Of the CCTV of कहाँ पे वो plant किया, किसने plant किया, किसके through. भाई ये तो 5 आदमी का ही नहीं, ये तो 25-30 आदमी का suicide mission है, कोई नहीं बचेगा इसमें. Because if that level of video comes out, then all the way to the MP, whoever was behind this, it's going to be a shit show.
Of course.
And so the only thing I think the only people I think might benefit from this eventually, say the chain of link comes out and the chain of link says that eventually this goes to some opposition MP, this is the rallying around the flag effect right before an election. You say, oh my God, the parliament and the leaders are threatened by the opposition physically. People think they're martyrs, so people are more like...
But see, it's not going to stick unless you have evidence, no?
And how difficult is it to fabricate any?
Very tough. Video evidence? You'll have multiple cameras as well, no?
Right.
So, देखेंगे.
ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग डेवलपमेंट है ब्रो, बिकॉज इसका कोई सर पैर ही नहीं
है ना?
ये तो उल्टा सीधा कुछ भी हो गया लाइक ये तो चिलर कुछ अलग ही सीन है. हाँ मजा भाई, मैं अपने घर से बैठ के कह रहा हूँ मजा हो गया. आई रिमेंबर व्हेन 2001 had happened and you had footage of those guys running in with their Kalashnikovs inside the parliament. That was serious.
That was very serious and that was scary.
That was scary.
This one, but you know, I'm very proud of our parliamentarians. Huh? Not one of them ran. Did you see a single person panic?
नहीं, the guy who was speaking was like, क्या हो रहा है? क्या कर रहे हो यहाँ पे आके?
Yeah. And the rest of them blocked this bugger and thrashed the living daylights out of him. I am so proud of every single member of parliament there that the normal, this thing is to run.
Right.
Not one of them ran.
Right.
Quite the contrary, they ran towards the guy
to stop him.
To stop him and beat him up.
Right.
Well, they didn't run to beat him up, but after they caught him, they beat him up.
They did beat him up.
Boss, I'm telling you, if anybody gets me the name of all those who beat him up, मैं सबके घर chocolate भेजूंगा.
Guys, if you ever find out, as soon as you know, put it in the comments. हम लोग साथ में chocolate भेजेंगे क्योंकि क्या whaler. But here's the thing, ठीक है? I remember, I think you told me or somebody else told me that after 2008 ना, our intelligence networks got really solid. Like really solid. That we almost woke up to the fact that we need a level of intelligence because हमारे घर में आके 2008 में कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? And that lent me to believe that these are things of the past that इस level पे parliament bro. Of everything, parliament में इस level का failure होना. And you know, add to that all this stuff we are hearing from Canada.
Again, that is what does not make sense, especially on the anniversary of the December 13th attack.
Oh, this was December 13th.
Yeah.
2001, December 13th and now.
And on a heightened state of alert because Gurpatwant Singh Pannu had promised to attack the Indian parliament.
एक तो भाई पन्नू की बात कर लेते हैं भाई. पन्नू में मार लगनी चाहिए भाई. पन्नू का क्या सीन है?
See, I've always held Pannu's a raw agent, boss.
You think he's a raw agent?
Yeah.
Not even a CIA agent?
No, because he's such a joke.
He is a joke. But he's bro. मेरे को मन करता है उसे मारूं.
Tell me who's going to take him seriously.
भाई यार मैं तेरे को बताऊं, I was speaking to this Canadian Indian fellow who's basically white but his dad's Indian. वो मेरे को कह रहा भाई मैं कनाडा से हूँ, मेरे 100 पंजाबी दोस्त हैं, उसमें से 2 या 3 ही खालिस्तान की बात करते हैं. खालिस्तान is a minority movement even in...
But the rest are terrorized into openly supporting Khalistan even if they don't do so in private. I'll tell you why. Ordinary Punjabi boys, nobody from the rich families is migrating to Canada. It's all the poor families migrating out there.
Right.
When they land up there, they're socially awkward. In India, socially awkward Punjabi boy to exist ही नहीं करता है because he's a normal village boy who gets along with everybody in the village and everybody 100 villages around him.
Right, right.
उसको लड़की मिल जाएगी, उसको लोकल नौकरी कुछ मिल जाएगा,
खेती कर लेगा
या ड्रग्स चाहिए तो ड्रग्स भी मिल
जाएंगे. हाँ.
Now, he goes to Canada and he's completely socially isolated. His dependence on social structures grows exponentially.
Agreed.
And who controls all the social structures out there? The same criminal gangs that are running the gun and drug racket here.
So the social structures there and the gun and drug rackets here. Acha.
So, and this is why rap has developed majorly in Punjab, because rap culture is always used to justify drug and gun culture even in America.
Right.
What are most of the Sikhs out there? Truck drivers.
Fair, okay.
The means of transport, the hinterland, the market, the social control required, the legal lacuna in both the countries required. It's like the perfect setting. Khalistan today is essentially a gun and drug racket with a made-up social, secessionist cause in order to claim political protection for organized crime.
So the political and social cause is like this umbrella that distracts people from the actual bullshit, which is a drug and gun racket to make some people richer.
Correct.
Because bro, I'll tell you what.
Now,
okay,
what has happened there is NGOism, fantastic to raise funds and shit.
Right.
You do social control, you say everybody has to contribute money so that it goes towards our oppressed brothers in Punjab.
Right.
Who controls that? The Gurdwaras.
Right.
Who controls the Gurdwaras? All the extremists. It's another source of funding. It's another source of hiding drugs. Because you will not raid a religious place as easily as you'll raid a house. It is chronic out there. The sheer number of Punjabis who I see are completely terrorized into submission by these Khalistanis is insane.
In the West.
In the West. And I know this personally from Australia, though it didn't happen to me personally.
Right.
When I moved from Port Douglas to Melbourne.
When?
2006? No, 2000.
Well, sometimes I think you are a raw agent because you've lived, like, I don't know nothing about your history.
I've lived in all kinds of places. Ab main kya karoon? Ab dekho, when I moved from Port Douglas to Melbourne in, I think, 2005-06, I moved, my college was in a place called Carnegie, a suburb called Carnegie. And I was staying at a suburb called Marambina. Well, and what happened out there was it had a Tamil store. The main Tamil store was in Dandenong, much further down, the same line, but
different suburb.
Yeah. Anyway, so I go there and I'm like, yay, finally a Tamil store. Port Douglas mein to kuch bhi Tamil nahi hai. So I'm like, yay, Tamil store, let's go buy shit. And I go up to the shopkeeper and start talking in Tamil and he's just stunned. Like, why is he stunned? Like, it's not like all Tamils are dark or anything and not particularly fair either. I could totally pass off as Tamil. About, I don't remember how long it was, but in the middle of my shopping, because I was going crazy, he suddenly comes up to me very quickly and he says, sir, don't speak in Tamil out here. Where are you staying? So I gave him my address. He said, you know, the previous people staying there were Tamil and you know what happened to them. And then he just ran off. And I pretended nothing had happened. I checked and I called up my realtor and everything. And she finally told me what had happened. This guy had been Tamil and the LTT had shown up and they had regularly extorted money out of him, and that was a racket in that area.
The LTTs?
Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, Prabhakar and
right,
Sri
okay.
Lankan,
LTT Sri Lankan Tamil,
So, I realized how much they can extort emigre communities like that. And this is what the LTT was doing in Australia. This is what they were doing in Canada. This is what they were doing in Norway. And this is what they were doing in UK. Okay? They were terrorizing Tamils into paying them money, or at least coming out in support of rallies and shit like that. Now, that being the case, how do you justify the fact that normal people in Punjab who are no way radicalized or terrorists go to Canada and all end up becoming radical? It's social compulsion. And the problem with multiculturalism in Canada is it treats them as not equal in the law, that somehow you're allowed to be violent in your community and social scuffles and intimidation is a cultural thing. And it gives the terrorists an upper hand out there to completely dominate and control Punjabi Sikh people who immigrate out there.
It's almost like a mafia then.
It basically is. It's a human smuggling racket. Superimposed on a human smuggling racket, which has now become a political control racket, which Justin Trudeau is very dependent on for votes.
For votes. That's very obvious.
And one that is largely funded and was initially set up to cover up for organized crime in Indian Punjab.
So, you know, the Punjabis I'd met, great guys, had always got a conflict in their head about being, whether they were from Punjab, India, or whether they were from Khalistan, because their parents had migrated right at the cusp of, you know, the 84 riots, or like a little before that and so on. So I always felt like these were aggrieved families who'd moved and they'd carried with themselves this, well, one injury, this trauma,
Yeah.
and also to some degree this dream of having an independent state. And I've always felt, maybe I'm too practical, maybe I'm too stupid, but I've always felt like Kashmir or Punjab trying to get an independent state between India and Pakistan is a false sort of idea. Like, you were never going to get there. Even if you do, you're going to be the base for terrorism to happen, right? But I didn't know that there were new
There are
immigrants.
genuine believers in all of this,
Right.
but they're the deluded ones who might immigrated when they're kids and their memory of the homeland is fossilized at that point of time.
Right, yes, exactly. They still think that India is that.
But much more of the immigration has happened since the normalization, in fact.
Right.
And it's a combination where the majority, in fact, has migrated after normalization, who are terrorized by people who migrated, who are forced into a memory that is ossified by people who migrated during the period of terror, and are controlled by people who are essentially drug and gun dealers who need social control.
So this Nijjar fellow, he was part of this.
Of course.
He was one of those gun runners and drug
Yeah.
runners, and was he killed by Indian agents?
No.
No.
Boss, we don't do this shit because, I don't think people realize this, but systemically, there's been a huge thing towards against covert ops for a very long time.
Globally.
No, in India. Because, we tried creating Bhindranwale in order to bring down. Indira Gandhi and Gyani Zail Singh. They created Bhindranwale to weaken the Akalis, and look how badly it blew up in their faces.
Agreed.
Rajiv Gandhi, Indira Gandhi again created the LTTE, which Rajiv Gandhi supported, and look where that ended up.
Right.
So we realized that this is not terribly smart, which is why in Balochistan, where for a while we were kind of supporting the insurgency, we were never giving them arms or training. What we do is we'll find every Baloch willing to rebel and we'll throw money at them.
Right.
Now, the Indian state systemically, if you tell them we need to organize an assassination, it's simply not going, that file is not going to go anywhere.
Acha.
So the way it would have been done, if in fact the state did it, is to tell all the existing drug and gun networks who are anyway extremely violent, saying ki bhai, dekh, if you do this, we're definitely not going to hand you over for extradition.
तू मरवा दे, कोई बात नहीं, हम देख ही नहीं रहे.
हम देख ही नहीं रहे.
हाँ, तेरी मर्जी है.
And so, it reduces something on their side. The thing is, we don't want to import problems out here.
Right.
I suspect that is a possibility, but in this case, I doubt even that is a possibility, and I'll tell you why. First, there is no proof. All they keep saying is credible allegations, credible allegations. They never say credible proof. Bhai, what is a credible allegation?
अंदर की बात है. Right. But no
क्या
proof.
होता है?
हाँ हाँ. ऐसा तो कुछ भी बात हो अंदर की.
So, and they could have asked the Americans to approach us with the intel and say, bhai, dekhiye hai karke. They didn't even do that. They could have got permission from the Americans to share that intel. वो भी नहीं किया. अब क्या है? बताओ.
But
Now, even in the Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, there are 4 dramatis personae out here. One is CC1, who is the alleged Indian agent. There is Nikhil Gupta, who's the drug dealer.
Okay.
There is UC1, undercover 1. And there is CS1, who's the confidential source.
Okay.
So confidential source is handling the undercover agent. Now, these two have met Nikhil Gupta. Not one of them has met, seen or interacted with this CC1, who's the supposed Indian agent.
Okay.
This could have literally been anyone. This could have been another drug mafia guy coming and saying, "Dekh, main tera case sab sambhal lunga, tu isko tapka." And see, the way the American plea bargaining system is structured is that for you to get a decent plea, the person you implicate has to be high enough. A big fish has to give you a bigger fish.
Yeah, right. And then you get no term.
Yeah. Well, you get a reduced term
Bro,
at any rate.
okay, but tell me, so I have 2 questions there. One is, I think Trudeau's stupid, first of all. I think he is completely incapable of leading a country in any form or fashion. But for him to still put himself in such an embarrassing position geopolitically to pick an enemy that has never been a domestic enemy, to actually implicate another state, a rising power, as a global terrorist or a terror-causing nation or a terror-inciting nation. What has he got to gain from doing that when he could have as well just looked deeply and said, "Abhi, this looks like an internal conflict. This does not look like anything anybody else is involved in," right? And two, for America to soon follow suit very quickly with Pannu, who is an obvious idiot, who even a broken clock is right twice, right? Who might at some point do something stupid because he keeps alleging he will do another Air India or some dumb shit like that. And at least he is the voice for a significant variety of radicalized Khalistanis out in the West, right? Either this is a global agenda, again, I'm getting conspiratorial, or this would seem like India, and Indians are very okay. They're like, हाँ हम कर रहे हैं, हमारे पास इतनी power है, कर ले जो करना है.
But I think we're actually outraged. Indians, not the Indian government. Because I don't think people realize how repulsive the Indian state, because understand, we lost 2 prime ministers to this kind of oversmart behavior.
Right. Both Indira and Rajiv.
Yeah.
Right.
We are in no mood to repeat that kind of shit ever again. I don't think people realize how much institutional revulsion there is to this kind of, khufia action.
Because it generally splashes back.
It always splashes back.
And the country seems to, or at least the state seems to love its leader enough for that to not happen. So this seems like an internal matter, huh?
This is basically drug racket gone wrong.
But why are these countries interested in roping in India in this then?
Well, America really isn't. They're not making a big deal out of it, are they?
Yeah, they first said something about we have intelligence that somebody in the embassy is involved, and then they hushed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't say embassy. They said in India, in the government.
Okay.
And they haven't pursued it
at all.
Really. They're very happy with our investigation because whatever comes out of that investigation will be shared with them.
Fair.
That's it.
And
the Canadians, the Canadian Prime Minister gave a very interesting interview yesterday, where he says the reason he went public is to reinforce deterrence because a lot of Sikhs were feeling unsafe. And you see how he's contradicted himself. On one hand, he's cribbing that India made things extremely difficult. On the other, he's saying that it was a really good thing and we did it so that India would feel that it didn't have the impunity to get away with these actions. But even after it was announced, the very next week, another Khalistani was tapcofied in Canada.
Nobody talked about it.
Even they themselves don't talk about it.
Because this is internal matters.
And apparently 2-3 more have since been tapcofied.
Acha, so this is still going on.
So basically, look, Trudeau is an asshole of the nth degree, right?
Yeah.
His father was an asshole. His mother was she was a, what do you call it? Swinger. Both mother and father were swingers.
Oh, they were swingers? Fuck yeah.
Self-admitted swingers.
There is a picture of Fidel Castro and Justin Trudeau and they look super alike. Yeah, you may never know. There is no way of knowing.
But to be fair.
This conspiracy peddling, huh?
His father also looks as butt ugly as he does.
Oh, acha. So maybe that's why the mother was into both of them.
Possibly.
Yeah, right.
And this guy is the lowest level. What was he? He was a bouncer at a bar.
Wait, Justin?
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah.
His father was a political figure.
He was a bouncer at a bar. He was a ski instructor and he was a drama teacher.
Okay, fun. This is the New York vibe, by the way. Exactly the New York vibe. Huh.
The only thing he knows is how to play the lowest common denominator identity politics.
That seems to be true from what I understand.
And because he was a bouncer, he understands thuggery very well, which is why a lot of his ability to capture the Liberal Party's base depended on, people never talk about this, but the first election he came to power, moderate Sikh candidates were physically beaten up and evicted from Liberal Party nominations, and it was all the Khalistanis that did a full-blown booth capture.
Achha.
And the RCMP was just sitting outside doing nothing.
What is the Election Commission, RCMP?
Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
I think that is as far as I could bait you into conspiracies for today. Next time I'll talk to you about more serious stuff.
Theek.
But I'm glad. Thank you so much for doing this as always, bro.
But not my sex life.
I will record that secretly and I will publish that everywhere. Every time I go to your place, I can smell your sex life.
Oh, Did you notice what he just did? He just said that I'm a dirty, dirty fuck who doesn't clean my house from...
Or you're fucking too many guys. Or that, because, you know, the smell remains. Yo, this one time, I'd come to your place and you were probably in the shower or something, so I walk into your room and I don't know for what weird reason, your blanket was over a set of pillows. And I was like, yo, what have I walked into? And then I walked out because I was ashamed. I was like, maybe there's a naked guy underneath that. And then later I found out it was just pillows.
Yeah, see what I have to deal with?
Bro, as always, thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to have you back again. Papa, agar aap yahan tak dekh rahe ho, sorry. See you.
Ta-da!